Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this special edition of the Shawn Walsh Show. Obviously, I am not Shawn Walsh. I am better than Shawn Walsh, in every way, shape, or form. Anyway, I am your host slash guest slash host, AJ Young, and my guest slash host slash guest is Shawn Walsh.
Aloha. I won the last time.
Yeah, it only took you what, 18 times?
Hey, I did it though.
Yeah, and then ran over to Battleground when
And
it
I
was over.
have the belt.
You stole it and ran to Battleground with it.
Ran.
Pride title's trash to me.
hmm
Anyway, Sean, what is the purpose of this special Sean Walsh show?
Well, I mean, it actually works out with some of the discussions that have been discussed lately on Facebook, specifically on like the Call Shoot page. And one of the things that has been talked about is, the line and the characters, not of on like our characters in the show, but the character of the people behind the call characters, and basically, in a broad sense, bullying in call wrestling, and you know, it brings back looking at some of the guys over the years who have done certain acts that would be considered bullying and that have crossed lines and have, for many, been given opportunities. But to get more specific, besides being that whole broad sense, there is one person in particular who I believe stands at the top of that list who has been able to cross the line multiple times and get chance after chance after chance, and that would be Chris Martinez, some know as Caleb Blair, Kevin Cash, among other names. So I think it's time that we tell the truth about Chris Martinez.
Okay, Chris Martinez, known predominantly as Cash. So let's get a basic timeline. Like, where did everything start?
Well, I mean, everything as when like when we met, as in our issues from last year,
I
or
mean, like, I guess, like, when you guys met, just to give a little historical background.
sure. So I won't go on too long about it, but yeah, I met Cash through a little bit of the YWO and a little bit of Call All Stars. Uh, in 2009, we talked to the same people. We ended up becoming friends, and we had a friendship from 2009 until sometime last year. And look, there were some fun times, but there were a lot of bad that I chose to ignore over the years, and I chose to pretend like it wasn't as important as it really was. And by me doing that, I came across as accepting his behavior. And it wasn't until early last year that I started to realize that I was wrong. See, you won't hear a lot of people say that here in call. I've noticed that a lot of people don't like to admit to being wrong about something. I was wrong about allowing this to happen and making it seem like I thought it was okay, and I was wrong for maintaining a friendship as long as I did with Cash. And because I came to that realization, eventually issues started to spark between us. We had many back and forths. We had discussions both in chat and in Skype calls that led to a lot of words exchanged. A lot of bad stuff said on both ends, but it led to a discussion that is now public on the Call Shoot page. You can go and search that up, about November last year, where the things that I said that were in, I guess, mean-spirited, were based on the truth. It was calling out a lie. And he said a lot of mean-spirited things because he was called out. He threatened to harass, threatened to assault, threatened to do all these things because I chose to no longer be his friend and because I chose to call him out on these lies.
So you said that you had started to pick up on some things. Where did the pattern of lying start?
Okay, so I'm sure it goes back to even earlier than I can even recall. But the one that stands out as like the first point that I really started to notice like something wasn't right here, and it's going to be interesting because it was many years before I even came to full realization, is it was about 2010, I would believe. I don't think it was 2011. I still think it was 2010, and I was in the Skype call with Cash. Steven Syntax was there as well. So for reference, I'm sure he won't mind or care at all that I threw his name out there. And whoever else was there, we were in a Skype call. We were doing what we usually do, is talking about bullshit. And suddenly, Cash goes quiet, goes mute. He's typing in the Skype chat, and he's like, "Oh, there's a fire next door in the neighbor's house." And I guess he noticed like the owners of the house had gotten out, but their child was still in the burning building. Now, to many who have never heard the story, this sounds horrible, right? And Cash then claimed that he was a babysitter of her at some point, so he was like, "Oh, this is terrible. I gotta go do something." So he decides he's gonna become an Avenger, and he's gonna go and jump in the building and go and save this girl. Now, I know what happened because I got minute-to-minute updates by Cash as he was typing. And he claimed back then that was because he had a laptop and he was able to communicate. Now, I don't know if anyone at home has ever entered a burning building in a Skype call on a laptop. I personally haven't. And I have never seen anyone do it before. Quite frankly, if I had to wager a guess, it's probably next to impossible. So he goes in there, allegedly. He saves this girl, rescues her, brings her out, and he's like, "Oh, but..." And then she went to the hospital or something. Then she died, or I don't know. And didn't even have a happy ending. Now, Cash maintained this lie that he saved his girl from a fire while in the Skype call with us, giving these updates up until sometime last year, where he finally, for the first time in years, admitted it was a lie. He admitted he just watched. Now he claims. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if this whole thing was just made up from his head. He claims that he watched from his house as a different neighbor went in and tried to save her. So, at least he's willing to admit it wasn't him. And any time that he was ever questioned from that day forward by anyone about it, he'd be like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about that." Or if it was someone who wasn't in that Skype call, he'd go, "Oh, you weren't there. You don't know." Blah 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 blah. So that was the first time that I noticed. But I don't know, like 12, 13 years old. I was young, and I was under the impression, "Oh, well, Cash has been nice to me, so yeah, what he's saying is probably not true." But I chose to let it go when I shouldn't have.
Okay, you had mentioned that was the first time he had admitted to lying about something. There was another thing earlier on around that time frame that everybody noticed he started lying about. Can you elaborate on that as well?
Around that time,
Either
uh,
around that time or a couple years later.
was this the cancer?
Yep.
Okay, so, wow, this is interesting. So, sometime around there or shortly thereafter, Cash had started making claims that he had cancer in his leg, which sucks, right? If it's true. And he claimed this, and I remember because he was like, he told me his doctor told me he had like 7 years to live. And this had to be, I feel like this was like 2011, 2012. So unless he's doing really bad, he claimed he would have to get his leg amputated, which I would imagine by now, if that was the case, it would already be gone. Now I haven't seen Cash, but I haven't heard about a leg being amputated, so I don't know. Maybe it's a miracle. Anyways, he claimed he had cancer, and obviously, and he went on to tell this fairy tale, and he acted like he was depressed and upset about it, as someone who would have that condition would. And he claimed, he put me in a situation at one point, even a couple of years ago, where he claimed to be suicidal because of it, because he was like, oh, well, I'm gonna go anyways, and yada yada yada, and put me through that, which was not fun, because at the time, even as someone today who does not like the guy, I wouldn't advocate for that anyways, because that's just why. That's I don't wish that on people. But at the time, he was someone I considered a friend, a close friend, and so that was a lot. And especially as it became more obvious as years went on that there most likely probably was no cancer anyways, because he shows no signs of it, none. There are no signs of anything. And then even last year, about last year, some of you who watch COH might remember there was just the build to the world title match, Ultimate Glory, was just odd and like a lot coming out of nowhere. And it was after the whole Ray stuff, because Cash was meant to become the world champion, Caleb Blair, and he had informed myself and Travis that his mother had cancer, and he didn't know what was going to be happening, and he may lose internet because he would have had to become the primary contributor to the finances for his family. And
which, if true, is sad.
Right. Look. If any of that was actually true, then I would feel so bad for the guy and anyone going through this. That'd be awful. It's just not true though, because then like the next month he was like he had cancer. Then the month after that his mom had cancer. Like, I call Cash a liar, but I will never call him a good liar. He's a awful liar, which probably is a good message into why you shouldn't lie, because quite frankly, a lot of people are really bad at it, and he is yet another case of a bad liar. And certain things weren't adding up, and even when we wouldn't communicate throughout last year before it finally ended, he would act like one day he'd be like, oh, well, I have a doctor's visit on the 5th, and then the next would be a court date on the 5th, and I'm like, what is it? His stories wouldn't be consistent. So even when I thought maybe, just maybe, because come on, I had to believe that he was telling the truth about the cancer all those years ago, because what person does that? I certainly couldn't be friends with someone that would lie about that. And you can ask anyone who talked to me over the years. I did believe he had it. Because I now look back and I think I convinced myself that it had to be true. But then when last year, when it was him, then his mom, and then all these different things, it was obvious. It wasn't true. It was because Cash is someone, even if it doesn't matter if it's for 100 people in a call video, or if it's for the 2 people in the Skype call, Cash is willing to do whatever it takes for attention. He will go to any low if it'll get him attention for just 5 minutes. I don't know why, because he could simply just do what everyone else does. And he doesn't realize that he cost himself everything, because for him in CAW, everything was adding up for him. And then because it was such a lie, and all of a sudden it was a miracle. Things are okay. I could come back. As soon as he heard, that Chronic was winning the title, it's just, it pisses me off that someone would lie about cancer, not just for themselves, but for their own mother too. Like, look, it's one thing, right, if you're gonna make up lies about yourself and all that kind of stuff, as wrong as it is, but that's on you. But then you go bring in someone like he brought in his own mother for that, and like, come on, that's what would she think if she saw something like that? You're gonna make that up about her? That's absolutely pathetic.
So about the cancer thing, you said that you had just started to pick up on it, that he was actually lying, after a while. There were a few people that caught on a little earlier, and when confronted, he didn't exactly react in the best way. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, of course. Look, although I'm like telling this story, I'm far from the first person to realize these things. Other people, friends of mine, realize this and were in my ear beforehand, like, look, you gotta wake up. You gotta see it for how it is. And I ignored them, and I was wrong about that. So others, and he would react like how he always does. He'd go and get angry. He'd yell and scream and threaten people. I believe, in fact, he said towards you. Because I believe you'd brought up that his cancer story. Then this is back when he was telling it was him who had the cancer, and it wasn't adding up. And then what comment did he make? He made something that wasn't about like a family member of yours.
An infant family member of mine.
Oh, that's right. Because it was. What did he exactly say?
I don't remember what he said precisely. I think it was like, "Oh, how's your nephew?" or something like that. Which doesn't, like, if you take it out of context, it doesn't sound malicious. But considering there was an incident where somebody else had brought that up months beforehand, and Cash knew about it and said it anyway, he knew exactly what he was doing, or like he knew exactly what he was saying by doing that. And look, I mean, obviously, considering what happened, like, a couple years afterwards, I forgave him. I even worked with him for a while in COH. But it's just to reiterate the point that this pattern of behavior isn't anything new.
Right, because that's a prime example of how he would react to things. You bring up something, you're like, okay, Cash, look. And not like you were even coming at him or anything. Like, you're like, look, this is just, how is this true? Okay, like, this and this. And instead of either A, providing proof and being like, look, man, I mean, it's there, or like trying to have a conversation about it, or I don't know, admitting to the lie, being like, all right, man, you got me. That was a shitty thing for me to do, which, I mean, wouldn't make everything good, but I mean, at least you'd be honest for once. Instead of doing that, he chose, let me go and have a verbal bout with you, and he'll go and he'll bring up your family member that was infant, and it's like, why? Because that's what he does. He tries to go and he says this thing because he gets upset and he gets angry when people call him out and things, so he has to go get personal and offend people and say all this stupid ass shit. And it happens to everyone. It happened to you. It happened to me later on. It happened to Carroll. It happened to all these people, and people just let it go because he hasn't done it to them. But trust me, he will.
Speaking of Carroll, is he here right now? Oh man, here when you don't need him, not here when you do. But
what's up?
Okay. So, currently we're talking about the instances where Cash has been called out on things and has decided to take things way more personal than it should go. There was an incident with you and him a few years ago over, as some would say, it Impact spoilers. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh, yeah. Well, there was an Impact show we were all watching because Shawn over here was at the event, and like a bunch of marks we were at this point, like 5 years ago, we were like, oh, let's see if we'll see our friend. And we were looking for him, and then along the line, someone said that he said it was live. I'm like, it's not a live show, it's pre-taped. And he was like, yes, it is, it's a live show, Carol. I'm like, no, it's not. And then Steven said, oh, it isn't a live show. They already revealed who the results of the main event, which was Chris Sabin winning the title.
No, it was Bobby Lashley winning the title.
Bobby Lashley. I knew it was somebody winning the TNA title. So then Cash heard this, and instead of yelling at Steven for revealing it, he yelled at me and started cussing at me and coming at me. So I was like, okay, bet. You want to get like this? Because at this point, I didn't care for him. A lot of people knew I didn't care for him. I just was being nice to him because he was Shawn's friend. So I brought up the whole... I was the first person to bring up the whole... how the story about him and the fire didn't make sense. And instead of him denying it, he said, you weren't there. You don't know about the story. You weren't there when it happened. And then proceeded to make fun of my family member of mine who tried to kill themselves, and thought that was a rational decision to try to make fun of that. And there was multiple people in the call who were there, Jay included. I think Steven was there, but they all got mad and left and said that was really wrong of him to do that, and told him that, and he was like, I don't care, you shouldn't have brought that up. So there's more that he's done to me, if I can rant about it, if you guys are fine with that.
By all means.
Go right ahead.
So last year, there was this trip we all went on. We were all meeting up to New Jersey, and I wanted to come on. I don't know if it's that I wanted to come on the trip, but it was something along the lines that Cash was talking shit about me. Oh, yeah, because he has talked shit about me for years. He called Steven my bitch. He thinks I'm the reason him and Shawn aren't friends anymore. Him and Steven are friends, that him and multiple people aren't friends. When it's that they realize how much of a piece of shit he is because I bring up facts and tell him, dude, he's not a good person. He's a liar. He thinks he's a good person when he really isn't. He tries to cause drama. So then I brought up to him, messaged him. Maybe I shouldn't have messaged him the way I did, but as people know me, I'm very blunt and I don't care. But I said along the lines of, why you talking shit about me behind my back? Then he proceeded to give me his long paragraph saying how he doesn't talk shit about me, but then proceeded to say stuff like, go pop pills and go pop and go drink beer like you always do, always talking about you being drunk and everything, which I caught him and said, I don't pop pills. Where'd you hear that from? And he tried to throw you guys under the bus, say, oh, I heard it from your friends, because he likes to cause drama with everything. He thinks if he can make people's lives miserable, then he should do it, which is ironic, because one of his other friends said that about me. So then, as Shawn and AJ both can attest, when someone calls me out on something, I'm very quick to prove them wrong. So he threatened, he didn't say it out loud or like try to say it clearly, but he tried to insinuate that if I was in Jersey, he would fight me there. So my response was to Shawn, bet, here's the money for the hotel. And I gave Shawn the money for the hotel then and there. And then Cash tried to downplay and said, I don't want to fight him. I never said I wanted to fight him when he realized I was coming. Then we tried to talk. Me and him agreed to put it on the side because we wanted to be with our friends and have fun, because I was trying to be the bigger man and try to not put anyone else at problems. So he agreed. But then when it was talked about the group again and everyone realized that they don't want him there in the first place because of how he is, he admitted to me and everyone that he lied about what he said about me and that he still didn't like me and he was just saying that just cuz. So he lies all the time. He's a very bad liar.
And see, the thing is, sorry, continue.
No, you can go on. What were you going to say?
I was saying, and the thing is, like, it was a group decision to have him not come on the trip, and I didn't, like, at the time, I didn't have any personal problems with Cash, but it was a matter of, like, what is going to happen besides problems if he shows up.
Oh, yeah, like, because if you guys remember, I wasn't, like, I was starting to come to realization of certain things, but I wasn't there like full on yet. Like I still had him as a friend because obviously this idea of this trip, there was still a possibility of him going, and I I put it to a vote because I'm like, look, we were debating this for months because pretty much it was there were people who were like no, and there were a couple who were like oh maybe, but it was pretty much at some point I had to make a decision because I was like, look, I'll do whatever the group wants, and we did it. We voted one day, and the votes were there. People just didn't feel comfortable around him. They didn't want him there. They thought something was going to happen, and quite frankly, if you're organizing a trip for your friends and there's even the slightest possibility that they're going to go and get in like this big and massive like physical fight, wouldn't it, and one of those people, like over half if not more, don't care for, wouldn't it make sense to just uninvite them, right? So it came to that, and I told him. Now he was upset, and look, and at the time, like, look, I understand why he'd be upset, but it's what had to be done. And then he started to think it was like some kind of conspiracy or whatever, and like, oh well, someone's getting into my mind or whatever. I'm like, no. So, and like Carroll said, he admitted like when he had talked to him and he's just said shit and whatnot. So what? What was gonna happen? He was gonna get invited, and then all of a sudden, even though he claimed to be all good and he had no issues, then he was gonna go make an issue and make it awkward for everyone and ruin the whole trip. No, why? Fuck that. Had to be done.
Agreed. And trying to think of where else to branch off from here. But you had mentioned, him making threats towards you specifically. Can you explain how that all went down? Because I think that was the breaking point as far as everybody like talking to him and being at least cordial with him.
Oh yeah, like look, and I like I said in the thing, there were some people who, and I'm not gonna name them, but like there were some people who were like, oh yeah, I wouldn't mind. Now it was maybe 2 or 3 people, and it was because nothing major had been done to them, so they were like, oh well, I don't mind or whatever. Like I just want everyone, like fucking people put on the CAW page. I just want everyone to be friends. Oh, why can't we all be friends?
Which is super ignorant.
Yeah, like this isn't why. If there's a piece of shit, why should we cater to them when like there's a group of 10 of us that get along, but there's that one guy who tries to ruin everything? Why don't we just get rid of that one guy and just keep having fun? Because we know how to behave like fucking adults, But anyways, so that was the thing there, and then the drama with me and him escalated over the course of time, and it led to okay, so before I get into that, because this is part of the story is important, and I know Doc will appreciate this. So Doc, because Caleb Blair and Ray Geddes were going to have a match. They did have a match at CAW All-Stars this past year, because of the whole Ray thing in COH. Ray left, so they were like, they wanted to do the match still. So Cash wanted to do an interview segment where he would end up challenging Ray to the match, and he'd asked Doc to do it, and Doc would let me know, and he was like, oh, just make sure this is okay, and I'm like, oh, well, I mean, he hasn't told me, but because Cash had claimed that I approved it already, and Doc told me, and I was like, I didn't, but I mean, it sounds fine, maybe just forgot, I don't know, benefit of the doubt. Then Cash messages me the next day, and he's like, oh, well, Doc can't do it, we can't figure it out, so how about me and you do it? We'll go and do the interview. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we go and we record the interview, and then that interview is actually, it did go up. It's on the CAW Owners YouTube channel, and we did it as we planned. It's fine. I get a message from Doc, and Doc's like, why were you against it? Why did you turn it down? I thought you told me that this was fine the day before. I'm like, what are you talking about? He shows me the messages. Cash message Doc, like, right before, it was either right before or right after he messaged me. And he was like, oh, I was talking to Shawn, and Shawn wants to do the interview. He doesn't want you to do it. So, I'm gonna go and do that. Which puts me in a tough spot, because the day before I tell Doc, yeah, this is great, go do it, and then he's claiming that I said no Doc, when I never said that. And so I show him messages that Cash sent me, and he's like, okay, so he's lying to the both of us. I send Cash a message about it. I call him out. I'm like, are you kidding me? Look, 'cause this is the smallest thing. That's the thing with him. It could be the smallest thing. Like, if you want Doc, then go ask for Doc. If you don't want Doc, and you want me, then you ask for me. It's that simple. Be like, okay, I think this would be better, and whatnot. Fine. Doc would be like, okay, less work for him to do. Doc's already a busy guy. So, but instead, he goes and complicates things because he has to lie. That's just in his nature. He's a pathological liar. And he tried to get around it, and he tried to excuse it, but he lied. I called him out. I sent him this big, long message. And basically, I was just like, I called him out on a ton of things. And it led to us having problems. And I believe we got in a Skype call not too long after. It was actually, I was in there, Cash was in there, AJ, you were in there, and Steve were in there, because you guys were like moderators, pretty much. And we talked for like an hour in that call, and he was bringing up stuff, and he was accusing me of things like I turned on him, and that I've changed, because that was his big thing that last year. He was like, I've changed, and the only thing that I've changed is that I've become smarter to his stupid bullshit. And instead of looking the other way, I finally called him out on it. So he didn't like that very much. So he was like, oh, I've changed, and that I'm this bad guy, and he tried to spin it on me, and all this kinds of stuff. He said stuff about me, said stuff about CAW All-Stars, and I'm like, okay, whatever. I come at him, and I call him out on all the lies, like the stuff that we've mentioned already earlier on, and then the Doc thing, and I'm like, and I say like the stuff like what happened with Carroll and everything. I'm like, look, I told him there, like, I should have done something. I was wrong, and it came to all this for me to realize it, and I'm like, I didn't want anything to do with him, and then I had told him, well, I guess I should tell this too. So, you referenced Steven earlier. Steven, he was a person who noticed early on that Cash was just bad and wanted nothing to do with him. And there was a point where because Steven didn't want to talk to him ever again. So, Cash didn't know for a whole year that Steven just wanted nothing to do with him, because he didn't know. And he finally got told, and he got upset about it. And I told Cash the whole reason that Steven didn't like end things with him sooner was because he still had DIW, and he needed someone to remind him of stuff, because Steven forgets everything. So then he started to cry. He left the call, and I was like, that went well. So, excuse me. So that happened. Me and him, we only exchanged a couple messages over the course of the next few months. He agreed to still do his match for CAW All-Stars and do all these things. He agreed to do the CAW All-Stars Rumble, which took forever for him to do. That was a big reason why the show was delayed. Could have been up sooner. And the Rumble, quite frankly, and I know this isn't popular for someone to say this about a show that they've put so much work into, but quite frankly, that's one of the worst Rumbles, if not the worst Rumble, in CAW All-Stars history. It was absolutely awful. The booking made no sense. The people in it were awful. It was people who were on the card already. You had a guy like John, who was really heating up and everything, and he was tossed out in a minute. Tyler Watson came in there. He got tossed out in a minute. All these guys, because what had happened is when he told me months ago that he had all these guys in mind for the Rumble and he'd contacted these people and got their calls, he lied. He didn't. He waited till the last minute. He went on Community Creations. He downloaded anyone he could find, and he put them in the match. It was absolutely awful, and I apologize for that. I know some people, and look, if some people did enjoy it, that's great. I thought it was awful, and that's why this year it's going to be much, much, much better. But all this happens. He keeps giving me updates like I care. And he was like about court dates, allegedly, about doctor dates. And then this led to some point in November. Mason Chronic. And look, you can look on the Call Shoot page for this. Like, this is there. If you go to the Call Shoot page and you look up my name and you scroll to November, you'll see a post of mine. It has a bunch of screenshots. And you'll see it. You can see what is actually said. So, it's there. And Mason Chronic made a post, and he referenced the story. He referenced about saving the girl from a fire. Now, those who know Chronic know that's not out of his character, and those who know Mason Chronic's like CAW character, that's not too much different from the guy. Chronic doesn't care. And look, Cash lied about that stuff. So well, he's laughing at it. Jay Crack had made a comment confirming that it was about Cash to clarify that, right? So you would imagine, and now all I did is I liked the post. That's all I did. I liked the post. I may have liked a couple comments. So let's play a game. Who do you think got the most messages? Was it Chronic for making the post? Was it Jay, who acknowledged that it was Cash and named him by name? Or was it me who liked a post? If you answered me, then you'd be correct. Jay got a total of 0 messages. Cash never went there, probably because he's afraid of him. And Chronic got a couple of messages, and he kind of just brushed him off, and he was like, oh, you don't, the same stuff he uses, oh, you don't know, you weren't there, you don't. And then, I can't remember the term, maybe someone can reference, but he called Chronic a racial slur. And just randomly, he called him a racial slur, because, you know, for those who don't know, Mason Chronic's the person is black. And he thought he was cool for saying that. And we're like, really? You're going to go and be racist? Alright, cool. But he messages me, and you'll see in the screenshots, he's like, oh, so I see you're not over things because of that, and if you have something to say, and we can go and we can meet up and we can fight, or we can get in a Skype call, or all these things, and then when about the get meeting up and fight, he's like, I can go and break your neck or something like that. Like, really? Now, and you'll notice in the messages, when those first messages he sends, I'm basically laughing at the guy. I'm not taking him that seriously. I'm not even going into things. I'm like, all right, man, I liked comments and whatnot, but fine, whatever. I'm like, I think it's kind of pathetic that he's threatening to fight over the internet. Really? Are you an internet tough guy? And he was like, oh, you're a pussy, you're a cat, whatever phrase he used. And I'm like, really? Because I won't go and fight you? That's a waste of time for me. Why would I do that? I have nothing to prove. That's stupid. And he's, and he's going on and on and on. I get the whole, you've changed, Shawn. And then I can't remember what exactly he said to prompt it, but because I was waiting, I was like, all right, if he If he says the right thing, if he crosses a certain line, then I'm going to go and go into him. And he did. So I called him out. I sent him the long messages where I was like, you lied about the girl in the fire. You lied about cancer for himself and his own mother. What kind of person does that? That's a horrible thing to do. I called him out for the stuff that he said about Carroll and his family and other people. And let's not even look, because these things get lost in thing. Even years ago when we played WWE video games, if he would lose a match, he would go and holler and scream, and usually at Carroll, sometimes AJ, and call him all these names because he'd lose a game. Like, really? And I called him out on all that, and I told him, like, I can't be friends with someone like that. Like, that's pathetic. And if you notice in the messages, never once does he deny it. He never says that what you're saying is not true. He never says, oh, the stuff he said about cancer and all that kind of stuff, that's true, and what I was saying was wrong. He never denies it. Because he can't deny it. Because he did make it up. He made up his cancer. He made up his mother's cancer. He made up all these other things. He thinks he's justified to say the things that he does because he's Cash, and why shouldn't he? And then after, because remember, he started the message with threatening to fight me and then going to break my neck. And then later on, when I'm like, look, man, whatever, I'm done with you. You do you. And he was like, oh, well, you know what? I have your phone number. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna go and put it online. I'm gonna have people harass you, because I'm like, okay. So who looks good in that? You're gonna post a phone number, and what? Other people are gonna go and call. He's gonna go call up his buddies, and they're just gonna go and prank call me. And what? They're gonna send pizzas too? Like, I mean, what stage are we? This is like the stuff that people did on YouTube when we were like 12, and it was stupid then, and it's stupid now. It's absolutely pathetic. And so after that, I was like, look, something has to be done. That's why I put it on CAW Shoot. And people saw it. A lot of people were shocked by it. Some weren't, because a lot of people who don't speak to Cash on a regular occasion, they only know bits and pieces. As someone who did talk to Cash on a regular occasion, this was not a surprise. This is how he reacts. And even when talking to other people who talk to him on a regular basis, their justification is, oh, it's Cash. Cash threatens people. And I know this person isn't popular, but I mean, look, it should be brought up. When way before the Sonny stuff came out, right? Like, way before that. Sonny, I think it was when he spoiled Star Wars in Steve's show, SWA. He was claiming, he's like, oh, I'm going to go to Detroit. I know where he lives. I'm going to go beat him up. He never did that, by the way. And because he likes to play internet tough guy. He likes to threaten people. He thinks he's intimidating. But what? Some dude who's got long, greasy hair, who's overweight, who's going to come down here with no fighting experience. Am I supposed to be intimidated by that? The only thing that I'm intimidated by is the fact that Cash, when we went on a trip a couple years ago, was the only person who didn't bring a toothbrush. And he walked around with his yellow-ass teeth. He came to New Jersey smelling like he hasn't been showered in about a month. That's what intimidates me, his stink. Everything else, he's not intimidated. He's just some internet tough guy who isn't that tough. So, yeah. That's with that. I have a thing for afterwards, but if you want to add in or have anything, go ahead.
I think you pretty much summed up everything as far as that like part of the predicament is concerned. The plot definitely got thick towards the end, but anyway, recently.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Recently, there's been people. You said that people. Some people were shocked. Some people, because they just don't talk to Cash on a regular basis. There's people who either talk to Cash on a regular basis or are cordial with him that wanted to be in the know as far as everything that he was doing, which is funny because it later proved to make no difference anyway.
Oh,
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
About him and how he goes low.
All right, go ahead.
There was a few years ago where someone we know, I don't know if I should name his name because of how the drama will get started, but essentially, someone we knew was being said that he was dead.
Okay.
And me and Sean believed it because at this point we were like, what, 16, 17, maybe younger?
Right.
And we believed it, and then it turned out to be fake. So Cash started making fun of Sean on a post about it. And I stepped in and said, hey, Sean wasn't the only one who believed it, so instead of being mean, how about you just let it go? It's a mistake. And his reply to it was, how about you go rape your little 7-year-old sister, Carol, over someone disagreeing with him?
God, I forgot about that, but now you bring it up, it all comes back. God. And it's so funny because he claims to be like this great friend to me. And certainly at the time I was confused to thinking so, but when you really look back at these things, it's not just that he was mean to other people around me and I was like, oh, it wasn't to me. He was mean to me too. I just didn't deal with it because I'm sure like everything else, I just let it go and I was like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. When that's all first of all for how he talked to you and how he went to that level and that he brought that up. Like that's who does that? Again, you see a theme here. People who are rational and decent human beings don't say that, but unfortunately that isn't him. And it's funny because one thing that I forgot when in these messages where we would get in these arguments about things is he always mentioned, oh, well, who was there for you in 2009 when they were picking on you? Because then, I was young and that's how it was. I'm not justifying it because it was wrong and I wish those people didn't do that. That's why I try to do better. But there was some time, like nearly 10 years ago, where he did stand up for me at a point. But according to that, I had loyalty to him. I should defend him at every time because he was nice to me and defended me almost 10 years ago. I'm sorry, but that's great. And I'm grateful that he did that. Because as someone who was young at the time, I couldn't do that like I could today. I couldn't defend myself back then. So that's great. But that's all those years ago. If you do that one nice thing and then 99 other shitty things, well, I mean, I'm going to go and be like, hey, there's 99 shitty things here. Thanks, but no thanks. Pete, that's just annoying. The whole loyalty thing. Like, is this some kind of like, freaking like, dictatorship here? Like, loyalty and everything? Oh. So annoying. But no, like unless you got more. But AJ, what were you asking?
So you had mentioned that people were shocked at first because either they didn't talk to Cash that often or they just didn't expect that kind of behavior from him at all. But in that group of people, there were some people who pretty much like demanded to be in the know as far as everything that had happened with Cash. And then when the situation was explained to them in probably the clearest way possible, it didn't end up making a difference anyway. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Sure. So, this will be an interesting one to answer. So, there were people. I don't know if I should name them, but who were close to Cash and still are, and they'd expressed concern for what he had said and what that had done to me. So that's great. But they, instead of the approach of, okay, look, yeah, mean words were exchanged, but you were calling Cash out on these lies and things that you felt that he was dishonest about and things that are just immoral. So in turn, where he would respond with these malicious things and would just say all these terrible things because you liked a post or because you called him out, and he would go and threaten these things. All right, look, if we put it on the scale, you had a pretty rational response where he had a pretty irrational response. He's wrong, but it was more of, oh well, even playing field, when it was not an even playing field. He was way more in the wrong. And then it was, okay, look, let's talk to him, all kinds of stuff. And look, I firmly believe in hearing both sides of the stories. I firmly believe in second chances and everything. But with this guy, when you lie about everything, what does his story even mean? It means nothing. Because if you have to hear someone's story and you're thinking, you know what, he's lied a lot. Is he even telling the truth? Can you use any of what he's telling you as any basis of fact? I mean, and it's like,
some people still do for whatever reason, and that boggles my mind.
Just some people do. Some people are like, oh well, because
you want to name the person we're talking about, or you just want to?
I'm gonna keep them unnamed.
Can I name them then?
No. I don't want to do that because this is about Cash, and so yeah, and that's the thing. And the thing is, and I don't think Cash is. It's gonna be funny because one day Cash is gonna be in a situation. Remember when we were all young, the boy who cried wolf? There might be a day where he finally does tell the truth, and there might be something going on, but no one's gonna believe him because all he does is lie. And when that day comes, well, I mean, something bad may happen. I don't know. Hopefully not. But I mean, if that's what happens, people just aren't going to believe you. And some people do. I don't get it. And some people are like, oh, well, okay, he acted out and he did something wrong. Let's give him another chance. How many chances does this guy have? You know, everyone says a cat has 9 lives. How many lives does Cash have? Like, you know, I've known the guy longer than most people, so obviously it's different. For people who are getting to know him, it's a little bit different, but you hear these stories, and people are like, oh, well, it didn't happen to me. Oh, well, it hasn't been on this side of CAW or this side or to my group or whatever. It's here, and that's a big purpose why this is taking place, because guess what? For the people who choose after this to continue to associate themselves with him, and look, that's your decision. I don't agree with your decision. I think it's quite frankly stupid on your part, and something's going to happen to you someday because of him, because that's just what he does. That's your call. And this video is here because guess what? You can never say, no one can ever say, I didn't know, because it's right here. You can never say, oh, there was nothing there. You look in November on the CAW Shoot page. Proof is there. Look in this video, whenever the hell this is posted. It's right here. There are signs. So if you do it, that's your choice. And you're going to have to live with your choice. I made that choice, the wrong choice, for the last however many years. And I have to live with that and all the wrongs that came with it. So you're going to have to do the same as I did. But now it's here. I had people who were telling me things. I didn't have all these public things. Now it's here. So no one has an excuse. If you want to do that, fine. But how many times are you going to talk to a guy every other week, every other month, and be like, you're wrong here, you're wrong here, you're wrong here. You got to stop doing this. You got to stop doing this, until you realize they're never going to stop. People like that will keep going on and on and on. And just because he's not friends with me and other people now, that just means, oh, well, I can go be friends with this group. And then when that ends, I can go be friends with that group. That's why when people are like, oh, why can't we all get along? Oh, da-da-da-da. Some people just shouldn't be around because they make this community worse. And if someone makes this community worse for everyone else involved, then why should they be involved? People should smarten up and be like, hey, I don't want you in my show. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want anything to do with you. And look, you don't have to say all these malicious things to this person. It built up with me and Cash and other people. You don't have to do that. Just make a good decision for yourself. Because I personally, like, I talk a lot like, oh, he's going to do it to you, he's going to do it to you. I personally would hate to see what will happen to you. Because I know for some people, and some people are going to make this decision to keep associating themselves with him, someone's going to message me in a year. And they're going to be like, Shawn, you're right. I should have listened. All the signs were there. And then such and such happened. And I'm not going to be that person that's like, I told you so. Like, I'll sympathize and everything because I've been there. But do yourself a favor. Make the decision now. Because then you don't have to go through with that. One less headache. And isn't that better? Oh, by the way, I guess I should address this elephant in the room. And look, honestly, this might even catch me some heat. But you know what? All of this might anyways, because some people are going to defend them no matter what. And some people who caught Virtual Wrestling United's prestige event, which, by the way, like the post says, there's no war. All right, so just throwing it out there. I have speaking relations with some of the people involved. You know, I talked to a couple last night. I was at their Q&A thing and actively contributed in it, right? So, and this is something that has been talked behind closed doors. So, but this is afterwards. I saw the event, and I saw Kevin Cash, who was in a battle royal to determine their first world champion. The winner of one battle royal would face the winner of battle royal number 2 on the last night, and, you know, winner becomes champion, right? So Kevin Cash wins his, and I'm like, oh god, are they going to do it? Are they going to put the belt on Kevin Cash? Because look, this video wasn't out, but the Call Shoot thing was out, and at least most of the people involved are on Call Shoot, so something's there. And I had made when I'd spoken to some, I'd made reference that, hey, there's issues between me and Cash, and he did a lot of things. In a Skype call, I even...
Didn't he also try to start stuff between you and one of the guys running VWU?
That is correct. So actually, let me hit that before I go into Kevin Cash. So, yeah, VWU's Prestige pre-show came out. Like, it was Countdown to Prestige, I think, and there was an error. There was a pause screen, and it was there for maybe like 10-15 seconds. And now there's two sides of the coin to that. I do think that's something that maybe should have been caught, but it happens, right? Hell, I was looking through CAW All Stars 1 recently when working on the documentary, and I found, I can't even remember what the match was. There was like 2 seconds, like not even 2 seconds. It was like maybe a second of a pause screen. So it happens. But I took a screenshot. I sent it to the ECW group chat, and I was making light of it. I was laughing at it, and I was like, oh, well, they didn't catch this one. Like, because they had referenced that the show was delayed because they're making sure, like, the editing is all done well. And now, I will give a huge credit to MTB, though, because apparently he was, like, the sole man on this, and he was working his ass off. And let me tell you, 7, and then when you add the pre-show, 8 shows and all this shit, whew, Not
Yeah, you
easy.
couldn't pay me to do that. Actually,
Yeah,
you could, but it'd be
yeah.
top dollar. Continue.
Yo, if you paid me, I'll do it. No, but like it's not easy. So like, it's, I guess it's bound to happen at some point because we're not professional editors. You know, there's something we do as a hobby.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's happened to everybody.
right. So I don't look at him any different. I don't be like, oh wow, you're amateur or something. We're all amateur. Uh, and so I referenced it. Now I had forgotten that Cash was in the ECW group chat, and he made a comment, and he was like, "Oh yeah, because you know that means the show sucks," which I never said the show sucks. And so all of a sudden, I get a message by an affiliate involved in the VWU. I'll leave him nameless, but those who know the story know who I'm talking about. He was very upset. He messaged me. He was like, "I'm done." Because he with like working for like call centers and stuff like that, and he's like, and he blocked me. Like, and I was
Which
like,
I still think is a candidate for overreaction of the year, but continue.
right, and like I had no chance to explain myself. Like I was just gonna be like, "Hey man," because he was like, "Oh, this is the last time that you talk shit about my friends." So I'm like, what shit did I talk? I said I never said anything. I never named anyone. I never said anything negative about anyone in that chat or like or anywhere. Like, why? What did I say? I was trying, and before I could, and I typed up this whole thing where I'm trying to explain to him like, "Hey man, you know, I made a joke, and that's all it was." And I realized when I saw Cash's message and how quick that came through, that I put two and two together. And then when I called him out on it in that chat, he never said anything otherwise, and he thumbs up my "good job, Cash" comment. So he he sent that, and I don't know what other message was included with those screenshots. And I'm like, man, I made a joke. Like, and the funny thing is, MTB, right? Because you see when he pauses the match, like his gamer tag is there, and he's behind all this. He messages me, and he's like, and he's laughing about it, and he's like, "Oh well, we gotta run with it," and he wants to. He's like, "Oh, for all the matches going forward, it'll have to be that." Da, 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 da. Like, and he made a post on Call Shoot laughing about it, and I'm like, okay, if the guy who did it, like it was his mistake, if he can make light of it, if he can laugh at himself, why is anyone upset? And he even echoed to me, like he's like, people aren't even really that upset. He's like, and he thought it would calm down, and it did. Like by the way, everything's good in that regards. Like the next day we talked, it's all good, love in the air, right? So I'm like, and I echo, I'm like, hey, I'm sorry you guys got mixed into me and Cash's drama, and I probably should have stressed more on that. I didn't stress more on that because I was just trying to make sure, like, yo, man, like this was a joke, it's not legit, so don't take it so seriously. Like, I get it. And Cash, who I guess he was upset because Cash did actually reach out to me a few months ago, and he was like, "Oh, but you know, the only reason that we're not friends anymore is because it won't be like how it used to." So, like what? Were we in a relationship or something? Like we're afraid we would just be friends? Like,
The other thing about it is that, like, the fact that he reached out to you a few months ago and is just as quickly later screenshotting messages and sending it to people, spinning it against you, like, I don't understand. Like, he reaches out and then all of a sudden he's trashing you.
oh yeah, of course. Like, to me, and again, I haven't. Besides that message a few months ago where it quickly ended because I was like, nah, I couldn't in good conscience be friends with him. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror and be like, all right, you know what? You're doing the right thing. You're a good person, and be friends with him and look at him as okay. Like, I just couldn't do that. And I told him that, and he didn't respond. So I was like, okay, great. No argument, no nothing. Maybe he just accepted it and we can just both move on with our lives. He goes this way, I go that way. And then he goes and he does that because I'm sure he was waiting around for his chance. He saw a golden opportunity. He sent it to whoever he sent it to and spun it, made it look like I was trashing them when I wasn't. Because Cash is now involved with the VWU. Like PCW is a part of it, and now Kevin Cash is the world champion for VWU. So he does all that, and I'm no dummy. I'm sure he echoed certain messages to them in the last year where he didn't say the nicest things about me or call.
Didn't say the nicest things. Yeah, I was about to say didn't say the nicest things about CAW All-Stars probably.
Yeah, because before we stopped talking and we would get in these arguments, he tried to throw that at me. And
the CAW All-Stars is AWF and Friends or COH and Friends or whatever.
Because he was like, that's what it was like. It was AWF and Friends, and I'm like, that's funny because there's all these different shows that are in like different, like there's fantasy shows involved, there's original shows, there's quote unquote shoot shows, there's feds that I talk to the people like your show DZW, like COH, like I talk to these guys on a regular basis, and there's some shows where look, some guys I talk to every couple months, some guys I only talk to for CAW All-Stars, and that's fine. Because I have all these people. Like last I count for CAW All-Stars 10, there's like around like 25 shows involved in this show, and that's not including like surprise people. So
AWF must have a lot of friends.
I know I must be like the best friend of CAW or something. So that's already wrong, and so I'm sure he echoed that to people. Now, I would hope and I believe that these people, they're intelligent people, and they're like, okay, pipe down, bro. But I don't know. I'm not there. But I'm sure he echoed that, and probably to deaf ears, and he probably used this as validation. He tried to make it like, oh look, see, I was right. Look at this. He's saying this. Da 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 da. Even though I got in a call with him a couple months ago, and I was like, everything's fine. And anytime I talk to him, I'm like, this is fine. Eddie Mack goes and tweets a couple months ago. He's like, oh, VW and CAW Stars should work together. And I'm like, I go and I like that. And I'm like, it's fine by me, you know? Just no one has reached out to me. So for anyone, because like, for the VWU account actually, so I don't know when it's going up. Like, I think like today, maybe yesterday, I don't know. Put a tweet out and they were like, oh, when we're gonna work with CAW Stars or something like that. And I liked it and everything. And I'm like, all right, but no one has. So this is to the fans, because some people liked it and they got some interest. No one has reached out to me to do that. The
other thing about it is like with Kevin Cash as VWU champion, isn't that a conflict of interest?
It is. I'll say this much. I have no problem working with the VWU, like working alongside them. I will not put on a show and have my CAW show AWF or CAW All-Stars or anything associated with me with Cash. I will not, like, if he's the world champion, then I don't want the world champion there. I just don't. I don't believe in doing bad business. And I know I call it business, like this is a business, but I believe you have to approach certain things like a business. Like if this was an actual business, would you associate yourself who has this bad reputation? Look at people in Hollywood, look at people in the world who have all these things that come to light that they've done. You don't see Hollywood casting these people anymore because it's bad business. So why would I do that? And I have a personal conflict with him where me and him aren't on speaking terms and we don't like each other. So there's nothing to gain there. I would love to work with them. I would love to put out a show. And the weird thing is everyone's like, "Oh, well, there's this joint show." Most of the shows, if not all of the shows that are in VWU are in CAW All-Stars and more. So like I'd love to do it for Brandon But why wouldn't I? Why would that be something I'm against if I'm already technically doing it with CAW All Stars? So, but yeah, if I will never have, and you can take this one to the bank. I will never have Kevin Cash, Caleb Blair, TRT, or Bradley Reynolds, or anyone that is portrayed.
Any of his old FSW characters.
Yeah, I will never have any of those characters on a CAW All Stars event, on an AWF show, and people who watch my show and watch CAW All Stars, Cash has played a big part in those shows. And look, maybe I'll use it for like reflection, like if he was on commentary or if his character was like in a past event. That's history's one thing, but going forward, no, I have absolutely no interest. It's just not smart. I won't do it. So that's my answer. So for people who are like who would love to see a crossover between VWU and CAW All Stars, you have it on record. I'm all for it. I personally have not been contacted by anyone for that. The only thing I've had for a smaller super show about having CAW All Stars Championship being defended, but that's been it. These talks have been extended to me. Now maybe they will afterwards, and if they are, great. If they aren't, I'll see everyone at CAW All Stars. But in that discussion, whenever it takes place, one of the first things I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to be like, look, Kevin Cash can't do it. So whether that means it can't happen until he loses that belt, whether that means the belt can't be on the show, I won't work with him. Nothing with my name or Brandon or anything will be associated with him.
The other thing about it is that I personally am baffled at the fact that there are people involved with or people who knew about Cash, Cash's past history, and decided to give him the VW title anyway because apparently he was around for a long time, which is true, but still, it's like that after all that's happened, that's the only consideration you had, is that his character has been around for a long time. It just personally makes no sense to me. I'm not knocking VW as a whole. I'm just saying that personally does not make sense to me at all.
Oh, it doesn't. And the funny thing is, look, because why not for a little bit more on it? Kevin Cash the character, like I'm not even talking about Cash the guy. I'm talking Kevin Cash the character. I've seen Kevin Cash the character in all these different shows over the years, dating back to 2009, right? And he was in AWF right before last year when I got rid of all of Cash's characters. Kevin Cash was never a top tier level star. He was always a star who, usually a babyface, who was basically Jeff Hardy, and he'd be a great hand for like the mid card. You may see him competing for a mid card once, a couple times. He may win, but instantly lose it. And he'd be a good like in between. Like when I had in AWF, he feuded with Nitro over the internet title because Nitro needed a in between. Because Nitro, I wasn't taking the belt off of Nitro at the time, and then Fisk ended up beating him. So he was just, all right, here you go. Here's an opponent. Kevin Cash can lose. I mean, that Kevin Cash loses. So I think, as someone who's watched Kevin Cash over the years, I think it's kind of crazy in a, I guess, kayfabe standpoint, that all of a sudden he's like the world champ. But I mean, that's not my call. It was decided because of seniority, but I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't have done the matches, and that's not me, because I don't know. Maybe Cash will take a soundbite and cut this up, but that's not me throwing shade at anyone or trying to talk shit, because just a different way of doing their show. Just is something I wouldn't do. I've only simulated the Rumbles and Money in the Banks over the years, and that's it. Otherwise, it's been a plan. Because then you have this situation where, like, look, there's something here, and they're gonna have to address it at some point. Whether that's he loses it or something, I don't know. So, and then it's the first champion. I wish them luck, and I'll help any way I can, but that's not the call I would have made.
Agreed. So, does that pretty much cover everything?
Yeah, that pretty much is it. We're a little bit over the hour mark, so we'll wrap it up here. Because, I mean, we can go on and on. I'm sure if I really start to think about it and look back more, I'm sure I could remember more things. Or I could go into deeper with a lot of the things that we discussed here. Point being, this episode is about the truth, right? And the truth is about cash, but it's even bigger than cash. Like I've said on the CAW Shoot page, and I've seen on these other pages, when people like Firestar Heart threaten to kill someone and whatnot, and this guy does that, and David Bentz, Daniel Mars, he goes and tells someone to go and kill themselves and everything. I'm like, what? Does everyone miss the picture on the top of the CAW Shoot page? Let's make CAW fun again, right? When did death threats or people mentioning that they should attempt suicide, when is that made CAW fun, right? It doesn't. And we can go and sit here and look back at the drama and see people arguing and be like, hey guys, why are we arguing? Let's have fun. Come on, let's all get along. But that doesn't solve anything. That just makes things worse. And look, there's a great portion of people in this community. Some who are my friends, some people who are associates, some who I barely even know. But what I do know is they're good people. And they try to work together and have fun and be good people. But unfortunately, there's a select portion of people that, for whatever reason, they just bring bad things. I don't know if it's because they had problems when they were in high school, and maybe this is their way of getting back by taking out on us. Why? Because we didn't do anything to them. We never said anything, but now it's their turn to be the bully. Maybe they were bullied and they think it's okay for that. That's not okay. And it's not. And if they were bullied, that's not okay that they got bullied. Because that's what it comes down to. And I know that's an unpopular thing for people to talk about. Because like, oh well, maybe I'll get called a snowflake or something. But quite frankly, these death threats, these threats of harassment, everything, that's what it is. It's bullying. So let's call it how it is. And you know who can stop it? People who are in charge. And you know specifically who I'm talking about are the owners of these CAW shows, like myself. If you look, the people who are on my roster, right? I think they're great. I think they're all awesome. That's why they're on my roster. But the second that I see that one of them, all right, they're starting to show some bad things, and they're going to be becoming a problem. Now, look, not everyone's going to get along with everything because we're different people and we mash, and some people have different attitudes and how we collide and whatnot. But if someone's a serious problem where they are bullying people and they're doing all these things, if I have to get rid of someone? Oh well. I honestly don't care. I don't care if you're someone who's at the bottom, which it's funny because some of these people are at the bottom, and I'm like, why? What do you gain from that? I don't care if you're the world champion. Now AJ's a good guy. AJ won't do it. But if you're someone who's holding a big title, I don't care. Guess what? Someone else is looking for your spot. I'll go and bring them up. And then guess what? There's a long list of guys who aren't even in the show, who are great people, and then they get called in. So I don't tolerate that stuff. But other people, unfortunately, do. And they're like, oh, well, they're loyal. Oh, well, they give me promos. Oh, well, they always give a like on the post, which is great that they do all that. But if they're a problem, Sonny, he was considered loyal. He was considered someone who would go and comment all these things, and he had his fans, and he was dedicated, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Guess what? He was a piece of shit. And before it even came to realization, there were problems there, and they were ignored. And then everything came out where it couldn't be ignored anymore. David Benson, he got fired. That post, last I checked, had 21 likes because most of the people in COH don't care about him, don't like him, and it's not because we're heartless people. It's because he treats people like shit. He's done it for years. This is nothing new. And that's why it had all those likes, because people were waiting for it.
And the only person who defended him is somebody who had a personal vendetta with Carroll to begin with. But
right.
Continue.
And look, okay, just like Cash has his supporters. So some people just like to defend. I don't get it. I really don't. You know, if you see someone doing bad, wouldn't you want to be away from them? Just my take. But if David could have been fired, quote unquote, fired from a call show, fired 2 years ago, and I don't think people would have been like, oh wow, why? Because he was a piece of shit back then. He could have been fired even earlier. He showed all the signs. He does it all the time. This is far from his first time that he went too far, and it was finally done. And people were like, yay, good. Why do we need to get along with people like Sonny? Why do we need to get along with people like David Benson? Why do we need to get along with people like Cash? CAW owners, this is a message to you. If you have someone on your roster who is causing problems, who is bullying people, you understand that even though we're not in the wrestling business, you're the quote locker room leader. You should take it as your prerogative to go and get involved and be like, hey, what the fuck is this? And you should go and look. Maybe if it's small, because sometimes you can solve things when there's a problem and like, all right, let's talk about it. All right, such and such, no more. And then if they continue to do it, all right, I gave you a warning. You got to go, because there's always going to be other people who are willing to take their spot. So get that shit in line, make sure everyone is happy, and get rid of the piece of shit. So for the people, and this is like the 90-95% of people in CAW who actually give a damn, who actually want to have fun, and are actually good people, can actually just cooperate together, and that's who should get along. So, CAW owners, figure it out.
Well, that's really all there is to say then. Shawn, thank you for taking the time to explain and clarify this entire situation. Yeah, there's really nothing I have left to say. But since you're the original host of the show, you can do the outro.
All right, so thank you everyone for watching. I have no clue when this will go up, but if there's something before, there's something before. And there will be stuff after. So we're gonna have more Shawn Walsh show for the remainder of the year. We'll get a couple more out if we can. CAW All-Stars. Remember, stay tuned to the Facebook page, YouTube, Twitter, all that, and yeah, stuff all over the place. I hope all of you have a great day, and remember, your goal for tomorrow should just be better, because even us who consider ourselves good people, we can do better, so let's do better.